I said I like my steak well done. You gave me a look.
Yeah,
Why did you give me a look?
because you said you like your steaks well done.
What am I
Okay, I'll let the commenters tell you why that's a thing. So please comment and tell us in the comments why I would give John a look for saying he likes his steaks well done. I'm just going to tell you right now, you probably just haven't had your steaks not well done, and that you should probably try that out and see if that opens up a whole new world for you. I don't want to spend too much time on steaks here because that's not what the people are here
You're
for.
going to make a mistake, John, if you keep doing that. But
That was fun. 10 Rashid points for you.
10 points.
Speaking of Rashid points, I don't have a good segue to come off of that, but I'm just going to tell you guys now. We are setting up for a contest, a giveaway in the coming weeks. Might be as soon as next week, so be sure to keep your eyes glued. Return for more awesome EventHubs podcast content, and you might find yourself with a nifty little prize if you like, comment, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. Also,
free money, people. This is what we're doing. So this is how the EventHub contest work on the website. John, actually, can I enter this contest for free money? Am
no,
I
you
allowed
can't,
to?
because no EventHubs staff or employees will be able to do so.
So you mean I'm not going to be able to ski Sonic this one up, or no, can't do that?
We should tell some stories on the EventHubs on the episode that we're going to do in the future, where we tell a bunch of dark, crazy stories about stuff that's gone down in the FGC.
Oh my gosh, the 50-part series.
Yeah,
and I'm warning people right now. I might have to. I don't even want to say his name. I might have to bring in a very colorful personality from the FGC's past and for some of these, but I don't even want to mention that person because I don't want to get 50 pings about it. So anyway, let's move on, John, before I dig my hole
fun.
even deeper.
Another thing, for those of you that we often kind of give our little tips and stuff on how to get better, how to level up. If you are first of all a subscriber, if you want to leave a comment asking us to review some of your footage, and give you a few pointers on what we think would be helpful for you to level up your game and start winning a little more often, your CFN footage. Give us a drop that comment and do hashtag EHPod. Oh yeah, thank you, appreciate that. Hashtag EHPod, and we will look through those depending on how many we get and try to do a segment or two where we just review some footage and help not only the individual that is asking for it, but hopefully give the bigger lessons to everybody else that's watching along with. So that's something that we would want to do, but let us know if that's something you're interested in as well. And then I think that's all of... Oh no, we have some bitch-ass rage quitters of the week.
Bitch-ass rage quitters
of the week.
Those bitch asses.
Okay, so the first one is a guy or girl named Nightmare Trigger, a Ryu player. Was, as if I recall correctly, a grandmaster, the purple one, and I was very surprised. So just you suck. How do you get so far, fight so many people, and still have this terrible habit of rage quitting? So shame on you, Nightmare Trigger. And then this, I did not run into this particular player, but I have in the past, and it rings a bell for me, so maybe they rage quit on me before. But the name of the player is Final Banana, Rashid player, and I believe they use a yellow Rashid, so funny enough, but a rage quitter, and they've been around for a little while, still in their gross, disgusting rage quitter ways. Shame on you. That one was actually sent in on Twitter. So this whole shaming the rage quitting is starting to catch on a little bit. So those are your bitch ass rage critters of the week. Send them bad vibes. I was gonna say dirty messages, but don't do that. Just bad vibes in there. Hopefully that they correct their evil ways and are better players to play with for the rest of us.
Bitch ass rage quitters
of the week. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully that final banana person slips on a banana thrown by Birdie and dies. So they're in game,
the game,
not in life.
Yes,
yeah, in
absolutely.
Game. Yeah,
demonetized.
Thrown by Birdie. Yeah.
All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about for this week's podcast is this idea of the newest character revealed for Street Fighter V and Street Fighter in general, and that, of course, is Luke. People are saying that Luke may be the new protagonist figure for a coming and yet unannounced Street Fighter VI. And I wanted to look at this a little bit more in depthly. And what exactly does that mean? How likely is that? And what should we expect? Is that a replacement for Ryu? Have we seen this kind of thing happen before in the Street Fighter series and franchise? And the answers to those are no and yes. So, first and foremost, it's not necessarily to replace the poster boy of Street Fighter. I mean, Ryu is so prevalent. First of all, as we'll probably get into in a little bit, he's almost a lock for almost any, base roster of a Street Fighter game at this point. You gotta have Ryu, or else is it even a Street Fighter game? And I would take it a step further. If you did something like a Mount Rushmore or like a Last Supper kind of image of video game characters, Ryu's almost certain to be in that, and that's just gaming in general, not even fighting games, gaming in general. So that's how you're not going to replace Ryu, is my point. And I don't think that's the objective here. The objective is to get a new character in there that can kind of be something of a blank slate for the audiences to sort of identify with, and potentially, if they do well enough, have a new mainstay that you can bring back in future rosters for future games and such, and develop a new character. You don't have to do this, obviously, via making them your protagonist of a new game, but I think they hit the ground running with a little extra momentum if they are front and center. And so one of the instances where we saw this happen before was, of course, Alex in Street Fighter 3. Capcom said, we've had Ryu as the main guy and all of Street Fighter 2. You had the Street Fighter Alphas, I believe, as well. And I don't know if there was I didn't play much Alpha, so I don't know if there was like a main protagonist outside of Ryu for that. I guess I could ask you really quickly. Was there, or?
It was, I mean, Ryu's basically the poster, because it's going back to, I think like the Street Fighter 1 tournament just had ended, but this is before Street Fighter 2 is where the alpha games are at. So Ryu is still the ultimate kind of poster child of everything, but you have these new kind of characters come in with like Rose and Bison switching bodies 50 times and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, you pretty much nailed it.
So it's Ryu for the most part. But then we get to Street Fighter 3, and Capcom takes a hard left turn and says, let's make the front and center figure that is fighting the main hero, fighting the bad guys. Ryu's still around, but the new guy is Alex, and they made him apparently the Capcom template character making program that they have starts everybody off with like blonde hair and blue eyes. And then if you want to change it, you can, but if you just leave those alone, then that's how your characters come out, because like half of their characters seem to be that way.
That explains Ken so well. I now I get it. So
yeah, right. Well, I'm the newcomer too. But anyways, you got. I don't think Alex has blue eyes. Maybe he has brown. I'm not sure. Maybe they're blue.
I think they're blue, but yeah.
Anyway,
you know what? You can never see the color of Alex's eyes, because he's always doing some stomp or some random thing, because that's how Alex players, they do some random stuff at the very start of the matchup. If they don't, they're going to do it like 3 seconds later. That's how Alex players do it. So how can you see eye color when that much random is going on? But exactly. I think they're blue.
So Alex was he's never been a very strong character in game, right? He was never a top tier in Street Fighter 3, and then most of us know that his history here in Street Fighter 5 has never been all that great in terms of being competitively viable. In fact, he was a meme for more time than not in Street Fighter 5. And yet he is very beloved. So some of the things Capcom did here was, he's an American, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if
from
that's
New York or like Bronx or something like that. So
right, which is similar to Luke. Luke has like USA on his trunks and such, and so maybe they're trying to appeal to a certain crowd and such. And I mean, Street Fighter has always been the world warriors, and you've got samplings of people from all over the world and from all different cultures and such. But but Alex was supposed to take advantage of a particular trend. I don't know if this was necessarily the height of it, but it was certainly something that caught people's eyes, and they modeled him after Hulk Hogan. Right, and then Hugo kind of being Andre the Giant, and famously in the Third Strike intro, you have the two facing off, similar to what happened at, I believe it was WrestleMania 4, where those two faced off like that, and Hulk Hogan's looking up even though he's like 6'7" or whatever he is. It's crazy. But they were trying to take advantage of some already established momentum, as we see all the time. We were just before we started talking here, we were talking about how Raiden came from Big Trouble in Little China, things like that. So anyways, you've got some kind of a reference to someone that's already existing, or I'm sorry, like a trend and something that people already like, and there's a ton of crossover between the fighting game community and the professional wrestling world. Now,
Hmm.
what they're trying to do with Luke, as it seems, is he's similar, that he's MMA. And I don't know
Right.
how much. I mean, obviously that's huge. I hear a lot more about WWE and the the other professional wrestling entities than I do about MMA in the fighting game community. But it's still really big right now, and it's kind of like the
Hmm.
modern thing. And if you want to switch it up a little bit, not do wrestling again, makes enough sense. And now he looks like Logan Paul, which I don't know how much that's gonna resonate with people. Um, but the idea here is that you've got someone that has connections for people to make to something else that they might like, and is also he's got some personality, some, like traits. His hair looks like stringy French fries or spaghetti or something, and he's got his tattoos and he's got his MMA outfit and such. But he's widely a blank slate thus far, and we've only got a teaser trailer, so that's pretty much expected. But you want your characters, if they're going to be a main protagonist, to be able to have your audience project onto them a little more, so they're
Hmm.
the ones that are sort of open to learning their lessons and being influenced by others and processing and going through an initial arc. And I think Luke, to me, he comes across as like maybe a early to mid 20s sort of a character, so still relatively young. If he is the one that says it at the beginning of the teaser trailer, something along the lines of, I want to be like him when I'm older. I don't know if that's somebody saying they want to be like Luke, or if that's Luke saying that he wants to be like someone else, but
Hmm.
I think that does sort of kind of like, I don't have a full identity yet, and I want to grow into one. And I think that really sets up well to be a protagonist and someone that people can kind of project themselves onto. And so, we might see a little bit more development as more content for Luke comes out. But the developers for 5 have very much been setting up that the story is more important than I think it ever has been for Street Fighter, and then that they're paying more attention and organizing not only for what's going on right now, but clearly for the jump that we're going to make from Street Fighter 5 into Street Fighter 6, or whatever they're going to call the next one. And that's of course with the Rose stuff, like there's some catastrophe coming, and she's going to need to go back in time to probably the alpha days. And then they right before they talked about Luke, they said Street Fighter, or as they were talking about it, they said Street Fighter 5 has been developed to pay homage to the past. Luke will give us a glimpse into the future. He will be expanding the world of Street Fighter. And then we feel strongly that Luke will be a great addition to the game, and that he has a bright future in the world of Street Fighter. So it seems like they're putting a lot on this particular character's back to move into whatever is going to happen in the future of the storyline and such. And so, they're investing a lot here. And so he seems really set up to be this sort of protagonist character. Did you have any responses to any of those things, or thoughts that we haven't brought up yet, or
I mean, the basic key point here is that the MMA stuff is kind of just really big in the history of Street Fighter, borrowing on other, you can call them caricatures, but real life figures and stuff. Again,
Mhm.
Balrog, Mike Tyson, all this other kind of stuff. Like the history of Street Fighter borrowing
Yeah.
other character archetypes and stuff like that. It's just rich as can be, and MMA has never been bigger than it is right now. Fei Long, Bruce Lee, all this other kind of stuff. Like there's a
Sure.
lot there. So.
Sure. So ultimately, even though Alex hasn't been the strongest character, he's had a ton of charisma. Fans still
Mhm.
love him, and so you don't have to be the best character competitively wise for people to still adhere and love him and want him to come back. For he's not the most popular, but they've wanted him to come back. They were happy to see him in Street Fighter 5, and they've held on to him instead of just saying, "Oh, he's weak, let's move on to the next character." That's always been like, make Alex better, and when's the Alex trailer, and all of this kind of culture that sort of has grown around him and continued to evolve around him. He's become a Street Fighter kind of mainstay, and I think that they're hoping that that's what happens with Luke. Now, there's another character that's not a protagonist, but I think falls into this same sort of category, and I would say, unlike Alex, was a total failure. And I'm trying to kind of tease apart why this character was a failure, and I think the right answer, but it's Necalli. Necalli's not a protagonist. In fact, he's an antagonist. But if you recall, he was seemingly supposed to be this in in the antagonistic version for Street Fighter V. He's the one with the big V on him, and a lot of the way that he works as a character is built directly into what Street Fighter V, favors with all the offense and the sort of like guessing certain situations and the rush down and all of that. But the thing with Necalli is they seem to have built up this awesome story that, as far as I can tell, was setting up to tell us where like the origins of the Dark Hado come from and how it's going to resonate now. And it's like maybe he's this old school like ancient entity with this really cool backstory as to like why all of this manifested in him and how he became maybe like cursed to carry out this particular task of consuming strong warrior souls, or who knows. It seems like a lot of that got thrown to the side, but you look at his move names and stuff like what was it, like sacrificial altar and the disc's guidance. Like, what is that? Like the disc guidance, that seems to imply some kind of storyline where you can imagine like an ancient Aztec culture or something, looking up and seeing some disc in the sky, sort of a thing. Maybe it was like one of Bison's weird moons or eclipse or who knows what, but there sounds to be like a lot there, where you're like, oh, this is where that kind of came from. The mask of Tlali, or however you pronounce that, what the heck is that? What's the significance there? There's a lot more backstory than I think we actually got. And the reason I think this character crashed and burned is because we didn't get any story from him at all. When the game finally came out, it seemed that the development team was way behind. The story itself didn't come out for months after the game. And when it finally manifested, Necalli was this sort of not even B-line story character, but just sort of this almost arbitrary guy that would poke his head in every so often. The water sheep thing and everything. He would get his ass kicked, which is not a formidable bad guy. And then eventually he was the thing that Ryu had to overcome, like sort of like the final obstacle. With after he did that, he found balance between the Satsui no Hado and I guess the power of nothingness and the butterflies and everything. And so now Ryu is fully powered up and yada yada. But like you could have written Necalli completely out of this story and still made it work fairly well. But there's just so many breadcrumbs of a really cool and intriguing story of where the Satsui no Hado comes from and all of that
Oh yeah,
I think we missed out on. And
they could have finally explained it. But I would say like the most damning thing for Necalli is the fact that G is the boss character of Street Fighter V, and it was announced like randomly on like a website and stuff. They're like, G is the boss character, and we're like, what? When did that happen? Like, it was supposed to, because I remember like them saying it was Necalli originally, right? Because it wasn't Bison. They didn't want to do that again. And they're like, yeah, it's Necalli. He's like the new boss character. Like, oh, cool. Like, there's gonna be a lot to look forward to him. Like the artwork and all that kind of stuff portrayed him as that. And they're like, forget about that. Like, we didn't mean it. So
I was thinking they'd go back to like kind of revisit it. Maybe they could do a second story mode. Maybe they could come out with more. But no, it seems like they pivoted and they called an audible and just said, let's just do it all over again, new with G. And he does seem to be tied into this whole catastrophe with Rose and probably Gil and such. But yeah, Necalli just by the wayside. And so not only that, but he was also regarded as a character that was fairly bland upon release. He's got a lot of cool tools, command grab and dive kick and DP and this cool transformation. I thought he looked really cool. I mean, I still play him, but a lot of people began to and then didn't. And he just fell by the wayside in so many different ways. I don't think we'll ever see Necalli again in a Street Fighter game. I don't think he made the splash that he was supposed to, and that's really sad because I do think he's really interesting and has a lot of potential. But
visually, he's amazing. Like in the visuals in Street Fighter V, in my opinion, they get way too much crap going against him. Some of the characters look fantastic in this game. I'm a huge fan of Chun-Li in this game. She is drop dead gorgeous. Laura looks amazing. I think a lot of the base characters are good. You have your Kins, you have your Ibukis, you have Sakura's a little bit weird looking. You have a few of those in there, but you've got a bunch of other characters like G, like Rose, Dan, other stuff. They look fantastic. Like, they've done a great job with a number of the characters. Like Oro looks amazing for what he is. Like, 140-year-old hermit dude. But yeah, it's and so when you're saying that Necalli is a very striking and impressive visual character, he's got great competition in this game. It's not like, oh yeah, and it's like, but he looks phenomenal. And I mean, they could have done so much. It's just the classic so much was there, and they just completely dropped the ball with him.
But I don't think that they're set up to have that happen again, because I really think that that was not entirely due to the fact that Capcom was behind and just rushing to get everything just to a halfway presentable state so that they could get, like, put the game on shelves. But I think that the bigger
This is why we got season 5 of Street Fighter 5 or season 6 or whatever.
Because
We were
6
not
is
going to get
delayed.
this stuff. Good old Catalyst got his character delayed here with Rose. Shoutouts to the people at Capcom that heard me shooting my mouth off about her and got her delayed, and I'm very lucky she's in the game, kind of thing. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going to leave that. Please don't kill Rose in the future, Capcom. I love that character, but it's I will just say that Capcom definitely listens to the community, and I think that Necalli's lack of a warm reception is a big reason why AG is a boss character.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so they weren't planning, if this is all true, of course, this is all just rumors, but they weren't planning on having Luke in the game at all. And I do think that he will be this sort of like, jungle swing from 5 to 6. And but so taking the example of Alex and taking the example of Necalli, what needs to happen for Luke to be ultimately successful? So far, he is sort of, blank slate, and that's okay. And that's what he should be. His gameplay looks fun enough, and that's not the only thing, but I'm sure it's helpful if he's better and more popular because people want to play him and such. And like we said last week, those like fiery full screen punches look really fun to do, and we'll see more of him. Again, only a teaser so far. But I think the big thing is, how well do they implement him into the story? How do they make him the face of the game, and is the game generally successful? So far, with what we've seen, I do think that there is decent potential for Luke to be not only a protagonist, but a successful protagonist that could become a staple of the franchise moving forward if things go well. But it looks like they're putting their hopes in that they can make this character that, because they're putting him matter-of-factly in such an important role to begin with. He has an advantage over others that where they're just like, here's Ed, here's Falk. It's like, yeah, they can still be successful, but if you're the poster boy, the front and center of your new game's art and all that kind of stuff, then you have a lot more going for you just right off the bat. So it will be interesting. I'd like to see more content, more footage of Luke, and more development of the character. But I do think that there is a potential success story there based on what we've seen with Alex and based on what we've seen with Necalli. We kind of know where to avoid, where the pitfalls are, and what kind of things resonate with people.